You probably have heard about climate change, but might not know much about it. We kids should all look within ourselves for how we can do our part to help. I talked to the experts at the World Wildlife Fund in Washington, D.C. to learn more about climate change and how to help.
So climate change is the idea that it's sort of this all-encompassing term. It's all driven by an increase in emissions of greenhouse gases, and that is leading to more warming. And because the Earth is warming, we then have, so obviously you have an increase in temperatures, but then you also start to see things like changes in rainfall patterns, changes in the timing of seasons. So climate change is kind of the term that encompasses all of that. It's not just global warming.
Every day there are more and more headlines about climate change.
Flooding and forest fires are two of the biggest impacts we're seeing out there, and driven in large part, we think, by climate change. One of the big factors that leads to forest fires is drought. And so typically what we've seen in the Amazon for the last couple of decades is when you have a really long period of drought, in the following few months, you really have an increase in the frequency of forest fires.
Not only is climate change contributing to forest fires and flooding, but also to the warming of the Arctic.
You'll see each summer we see that the extent of sea ice is getting smaller and smaller.
The sea ice is retreating because the temperature is rising. The sea ice melts, revealing a darker ocean which keeps more heat in the atmosphere, increasing the temperature and melting more sea ice in a big feedback loop.
The suggestions are that by 2040, there might not be any sea ice in the Arctic in the summer.
Polar bears, which live around the Arctic, are especially impacted by climate change and need our help.
I'm seeing more and more kids and the younger generation stepping up and taking action and calling for some sort of accountability from my generation, from older generations. And so I think if we weren't in a situation where things were so bad, kids wouldn't be stepping up as much. And so that is a really hopeful thing to see.
Kids of all ages are joining annual climate marches around the world. So what are some other things that kids can do to help?
I think there's a lot. I have so much hope for kids your age. I think you have a lot of power in your voice. I think a lot of this generation has this ability to capture the attention of older generations in a way that maybe hasn't been seen in a really long time.
I think that your generation is really important. Even in your own daily life, you can make a lot of changes, right? Just simple things like switching off the lights when you walk out of a room, saving water, reducing your consumption of things like plastics. All of these are really important steps that you can take. If you're at home and you see that your parents aren't recycling, you should call them out and say that no, that should go in the recycling bin. Or that no, why are we leaving the lights on? We should turn the lights off. Small things like that.
There are a ton of little things you can do at your schools, within your communities, get involved with community gardens or recycling programs. There's a lot you can do. And I think it all stems from recognizing conservation and climate change affects multiple layers of your life. And so it's okay, what part of my life is climate change affecting, and what can I contribute to that? It doesn't matter how old you are, what you do, where you're from, you have a lot of power in using your voice to see the changes that you want to see.
And you've seen in this country that the youth really do have a voice. If they can actually do a big job in convincing their parents. Because if the parents, they might not listen to some stranger, hopefully they would at least listen to their children.